All right, so move on to the next segment. I'll be sharing my fight prediction in the sport of boxing between David Benavidez and Oleksandr Gvozdyk in the sport of boxing this weekend. So this fight will be taking place in the super light heavyweight division in the sport of boxing, and the interim WBA title at the super light heavyweight division will be on the line in this fight that will be featured on the Gervonta Davis and Frank Martin card. This will be the co-main event of that card between David Benavidez and Oleksandr Gvozdyk. So this could be interesting here because, like I just said, the interim WBA light heavyweight title is on the line here. The champion is Dmitry Bivol. So that would mean the winner of this fight would be the mandatory for Dmitry Bivol or Arthur Beterbiev, whoever wins that undisputed title fight at 175 pounds in the later part of 2024. So this fight has a lot of significance and a lot of importance to it. So these are my storylines heading into this fight. How will David Benavidez adjust from making the super middleweight division at 168, making the jump to the super light heavyweight division at 175? For years, I've said that David Benavidez has been one of the best fighters at the super middleweight division. He became a two-time WBC super middleweight champion. He's also the interim WBC super middleweight champion. And he has signature wins in this division against Anthony Durrell, Caleb Plant, Demetrius Andre. He cleaned up this division and should have always had his shot against Canelo Alvarez. And that's a damn shame on Canelo Alvarez for ducking David Benavidez for so long and basically saying he's not going to give David Benavidez his shot unless he gets a payday of $200 million to fight David Benavidez. So I think it's wrong, but at the end of the day, this is boxing. Boxing is full of politics. It's a business sport, and Canelo Alvarez is clearly in business for himself, knowing the threat that David Benavidez is. But that's a different topic for a different day. But it is unfortunate that he never got a shot against Canelo Alvarez, and it's the reason why he's really at the 175-pound division in the first place. Because if you're not going to beat the best guy at that division, why not climb up and try to beat the best guys like Dmitry Bivol, Arthur Beterbiev in this division? So shout out to David Benavidez. I think of him as a throwback fighter, not afraid of smoke, always wanting to fight the best of the best. But my final storyline for this fight is, can Oleksandr Gvozdyk get back to the top of the mountain at the 175-pound division? If you guys are unfamiliar with Alexander, the man was on top of the mountain once upon a time at this division. He was the WBC champion at this division at 175 pounds. A few years ago, he lost to Arthur Beterbiev in a unified championship match, a championship fight, where Arthur Beterbiev became the WBC champion after he successfully defended his IBF title also in that fight. But that fight took place in 2019. And Oleksandr Gvozdyk took a lot of time off from the sport of boxing from them. He didn't fight in 2020. He didn't fight in 21. Didn't fight in 22. Had 3 fights in 2023. And we're going to see how prepared he is to fight David Benavidez. And looking at that, that is his only loss, actually. Oleksandr Gvozdyk's only loss against Arthur Beterbiev. And that's nothing to be ashamed of, because Arthur Beterbiev, all 20 of his wins, he's won via knockout. So there's nothing to be ashamed there by losing to a pound-for-pound great in Arthur Beterbiev. But let's get to the tail of the tape here. David Benavidez is 28-0. He has 24 victories come away of knockout. Former WBC super middleweight champion, stands at 6'2" and has a reach advantage of 74 inches. Then you look at Oleksandr Gvozdyk. He is 21-1. He is 20-1. 20 victories, 1 loss, 16 victories come away of knockout. Former WBC light heavyweight champion, stands at 6'2" and has a reach advantage of 75 inches. So both fighters stand at the same height, but the reach advantage goes in favor of Oleksandr Gvozdyk. Now, these are my final game plans for the fighters to follow if they want to walk out of the T-Mobile Arena as the new interim WBA super light heavyweight champion. So let's get into it for Oleksandr Gvozdyk. I think Alexander needs to land strong 1-2 combinations in this fight. Best part of his boxing skills, watching him throughout the years and touching base on watching film of him this past weekend. I think the 1-2 combinations are going to be in his favor. I think that's his bread and butter and his offensive game plan. I think that's going to be the key to slow down David Benavidez, who will be looking to come forward the entire fight. David Benavidez is someone that does not box on his back foot. He comes forward to you the entire fight. So I think that would be great if Alexander can slow him down, landing 1-2 combinations against David Benavidez, who you know is going to try to walk you down this fight. Next, I feel like Alexander's going to have to use his footwork during this fight. One of the only flaws I see in David Benavidez as a boxer is his footwork. He is a very flat-footed guy, doesn't have the best footwork, and I think that's the only flaw really in David Benavidez's game. But if Alexander can move in different directions using his footwork, fight in different angles, he really has a chance of winning this fight because you keep pivoting your feet, you keep shuffling around, you land combinations in different angles, frustrate David Benavidez, throw him off his game plan. That could be a key ingredient to defeating David Benavidez this weekend. And lastly, I think Alexander's going to have to establish his power. He's been around the block in this division. Former WBC light heavyweight champion. And he could really be the weight bully in this fight. Now, walk around weight is one thing, yes, but there's reasons why that there's weight divisions, and weight classes in the sport of boxing. He has the chance to be a weight bully against David Benavidez, who is coming up. This is his first fight at 175. So we're going to see what Oleksandr Gvozdyk could do. Those are my following game plans for him to follow in this fight. Now, for David Benavidez, starting off with his game plans, I think he's going to have to use his reflexes to be alert. You don't think much of David Benavidez as a defensive fighter because he's obviously stated in interviews he's willing to get hit to entertain the fans, entertain the crowd, watching at home and in the arenas. So you really don't think of him as a defensive fighter, but he is very smart and he is very alert and he does use his reflexes in fights. Look at his past fights, look at the film, look at the tape study. He does use his reflex and he's very good at it. And I feel like he uses his reflexes to react to what Alexander could throw at him and he wins the counter-punching battle. He could easily put this fight to bed before round 7. This fight could really end in 6 rounds if he uses reflexes and wins the counter-punching battle. Nextly, when they exchange in the pocket. What did I just say a few moments ago? David Benavidez is a throwback fighter. The man is not afraid of smoke. The man will walk you down and fight coming forward the whole entire fight. And that's what I like about him. And I feel like he's going to have to win the exchange in the pocket when him and Alexander match up because just like David Benavidez, Alexander doesn't fight backwards. He fights coming forward as well. So I think David Benavidez can take punishment to dish out even more punishment. And I feel like if David Benavidez does that, it's going to be a long night in the office for Oleksandr Gvozdyk in this fight. Now, lastly, establish his power. The legend Iron Mike Tyson, one of the greatest heavyweights of all time, gave David Benavidez the nickname the Mexican Monster. And ever since he got that nickname, he has not looked back because you don't get that nickname from an all-time great by accident. The power is real, David Benavidez. Look at what he did to Caleb Plant. To me, the greatest fighter that he's ever fought. He didn't stop him like Canelo, but he left him a bloody mess. And I think his power is real. And I think that's the real reason why he has 24 victories coming away of knockout. So he's going to have to establish his power against Oleksandr Gvozdyk in this fight. But those are my following game plans for the respective fighters to follow for this fight. With that being said, I'm going to go with David Benavidez to win this fight by knockout and defeating Oleksandr Gvozdyk to become the new interim WBA to become the new WBA light heavyweight champion. I think this is going to be a real interesting fight. I do believe that David Benavidez's boxing skills and his power will be too much for Oleksandr Gvozdyk to handle in this fight. I do believe that David Benavidez will have more pop. He will be more explosive. And I think he's going to have more power in this division coming up from 168 to 175, entering the light heavyweight division. I do believe that he is going to make a statement in this fight, fighting Alexander, who's a former WBC light heavyweight champion. And I feel like he's going to send a message to the greats in this division, Dmitry Bivol and Arthur Benavidez, to set up future fights for that in this division in the future. But I feel like Oleksandr has not been the same since his loss that he suffered against Arthur Benavidez back in 2019. The man has took years off from the sport of boxing, didn't fight in 2020, 21, or 22. He did have 3 fights in 2023, but I feel like age and the lack of competition of not fighting an elite fighter from Arthur Benavidez years ago until now, fighting an elite fighter, David Benavidez, is going to catch up to him. I feel like David Benavidez is going to win this fight. I lean towards a 7th or 8th round knockout. I like David Benavidez winning this fight and becoming the new interim WBA light heavyweight champion in the sport of boxing. But those are my fight predictions for this weekend's fight between David Benavidez and Oleksandr Gvozdyk.